Can you maybe explain for some of the crowd here what you mean by lumpen?
Lumpen is a subclass of the working class, just like petty bourgeoisie is an upper layer of the working class. The petty bourgeoisie is being proletarianized, and a lot of the workers who are being laid off and have their jobs taken by automation or whatever are being shoved down into what would be called the lumpen class. Mao Zedong said the lumpen, can be brave fighters if given proper direction. And so the lumpen proletariat is kind of a Marxist term. I don't think it has a lot of weight right now.
But great title of the book, and it was a class you identified with.
This is great. Okay, do we have any more questions? This is so great. This is great. I wonder when are you going to do this ever again? I mean, this is really great. Any more questions? I see you guys kind of see a hand. Oh, is there a hand? Is that a hand? No? That wasn't a hand? Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, I see one.
What was your favorite action that you did with the George Jackson Brigade?
What was your favorite action you did with the JGB?
1975.
Well, that was you. You started it. You started it.
In 1975, we did an action in support of the City Light workers. They were on strike, and in that conglomerate of workers, the women were not getting the same wages as men, and they were not getting the same jobs. And they were striking hard. I don't know how long it was going on, but the brigade decided to give them a little boost. So we went out to the Laurelhurst.
So for anyone that doesn't know, Laurelhurst, then and now, is this fancy, rich neighborhood. And now the City Light strike is on the front pages of the newspaper and on the television news. It was a major struggle that was going on. And the City Light just would not give in to the workers at all. And so Mark and I, we did multiple bombings that night, but the one Mark and I did was to a power substation in the Laurelhurst neighborhood that we blew out the transformers, started a huge fire. It was in no houses were in danger or anything. It was in kind of like a park. And
No TV for a while.
yeah, so the rich had to bring in their New Year's in the dark. And it did move to settling that strike. Shortly after that, the City Light, or the city, or the state, or whoever, didn't want any more of that. And I've been told, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard it from more than one source, and that is, I'm sure it's not happening anymore, but for a while, after years after that bombing, on New Year's, City Light workers would toast the brigade.
Actually, I joined the brigade after Tukwila, so my favorite brigade actions were the Department of Corrections bombing and Laurelhurst, which I wasn't around for. I don't think I had any favorite actions afterwards, but one of the things that, because I wasn't in prison when some of the brigade actions happened, a while after I was out, I was thinking, well, what a waste of everybody's life. I had the shortest sentence of anybody, and yet they spent years and years locked down, and we didn't do anything. And then I talked to Ed about that at one point, and he was telling me what happened in the prison after some of our actions, I think at Walla Walla, and which was really encouraging for me.
the George Jackson Brigade's first action was busting into the headquarters of the Department of Corrections in Olympia, a 5-story building, planting a powerful bomb under the desk of the associate director.
After hours.
Yeah, after hours. The bomb went off at 1 o'clock in the morning and did structural damage to the building. And we issued a communique saying what was happening, how the brigade came about. And this probably isn't anything good to say, but prisoners were struggling for democracy inside the Washington State Penitentiary. And as they had a resident government council, and were a 50-50 where the state ran the guards and the towers and guns and everything, and the prisoners pretty much ran themselves. And the guards and the administration hated this. There was this guy, Dr. Kite, who went to the Netherlands and came back with this newfangled idea about how prisons should be run. And as a rule, people learn how to wield power in the process of struggling for it. But in this particular case, prisoners went on a work strike for long hair and beards, and the Department of Corrections threw them self-government. And they did a pretty good job of it. But the administration stopped it, and the prisoner says, you know, you can't do this, we're going to fight back, and they did. And those who were fighting back were thrown in the hole and brutalized. One prisoner had a riot baton shoved up his butt, causing a 5/8" tear to his lower interior or something or other. It was just bad. And those prisoners sent a note out to the streets telling us what their conditions were. And somehow that note found itself in my hands, and I went to El Centro de la Raza, I went to all kinds of different groups, and said, we have to have a demonstration in support of these people. And and you know, it just so a small group of us decided to do something on our own, and that was busting into the headquarters of the Department of Corrections and planting that pipe bomb. And issuing a communique saying that, pointing out how the prisoners were being brutalized inside the segregation unit at Walla Walla, and telling them that we will continue this until such time as, you know, that behavior stops. And that behavior did stop. But the point what Janine is trying to make.
What about after the Rainier Bank bombing?
Yes.
But anyway, the warden was kicked out, the guard was, go ahead with that.
Okay, well, a major struggle, a big struggle, but I forgot what the point was.
After the bombing, things were settled in the penitentiary. The warden was taken out, some guards were transferred out of the, people were taken out of the hole, and so it was a successful bombing. But the point is, in both of these bombings we described, these were what I call armed propaganda. It's not against people. You're not hurting people. They're more concerned with their property than themselves. You destroy their property and they'll listen to you. That's what the brigade learned. In every one of our bombings, they listened. The communiques that he's talking about were published over the radios, on TV, and in the newspapers. And so everybody could read why these bombings took place. And so it was kind of a practical step. It wasn't perfect, but we found out a new way of approaching government, and that was by attacking their property, not their persons. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Any other questions or comments, or does anybody want to say something about Bo or their thoughts about those times?
I have a question.
Okay.
So I was wondering if you could each explain, I guess, your experiences and feelings from when you went from struggle to armed struggle, and what that meant, and how it impacted your life in that moment.
That is a really tough question. And I'm not sure whether I can do that or not, but we're going to try.
It would.
Go ahead.
Do you want to say it in the microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I guess the question that I'm asking is, at a certain point, you became a lot more radical in your actions. And I'm wondering when that switch happened, I guess like what were your experiences of that first action that you took, or the first pipe bomb that you made, or that step of going in a direction of like, oh shit, like this is real, like we could die.
I'll start and then you go. Well, I was in Seattle organizing Seattle Coyote, which was Call Off Your Old Tired Ethics, and we were working to decriminalize prostitution. And more I was encountering, and I started working with Rita, Bo Brown, and Therese, and Women Out Now in prison. And so I was just seeing way more of the contradictions and way more oppression and suffering. And it was also a very revolutionary period. I think also at my age, I was sure that we were going to make revolution within another 2 years, and which was part of it. But then I found out that I actually knew some people who were in the brigade who wanted me to join. And I felt like, I'm talking about myself being a revolutionary. I want these changes to happen, and yet I'm not willing to take this step. I mean, what's that about? So I felt like it was important for me to join the brigade, that I had the chance to learn the skills. I didn't see us as at all the vanguard. I thought that this was just one piece, getting the skills to be able to have some military competence. Armed struggle competence was one piece of it. And it just seemed like, with all of the oppression that was happening, if I had any integrity as a revolutionary, I needed to do this.
I don't know how many, I really can't see you all. I don't know how many of you were alive back in those days. But I went to prison and came out almost 20 years later, just like Rip Van Winkle. When I went to prison, things in society were so bad that we risked imprisonment or death to try and bring about change. I came out almost 20 years later. People are sleeping in the streets. People are just walking over them. There's beggars at every off-ramp. I mean, in my day, I hitchhiked from Seattle down to San Francisco to Buffalo, New York to participate in the 1974 Attica demonstration. There was a whole collective or community, whatever you wanted to call it, of people who traveled the country that way. Whereas now, I read a story some years ago where a woman was pulled over on the side of a road, and this guy comes along and offers to help her, and she maced him and says, "I'm on my phone, I'm calling 911. I mean, that's how atomized people are today as opposed to how things were back in the day. In answer to your question, being underground is not romantic. It's not fun. It's a terrible place to be, and it's a huge sacrifice. Woe be unto those who choose to follow that path.
That's true, I totally agree with that.